welcome to the Carlisle Connection podcast, a Minuteman Media production. My name is Ryan McLean. I'm the town administrator of Carlisle, and I will be alone today on today's podcast, but I wanted to bring you a quick podcast about the annual budget process. There are things that we get more questions about than the budget, but very few. The budget is a very popular topic here in town as it impacts your taxes, the delivery of services to our residents, and generally identifies the goals and the vision where the town wants to go. So a lot of people get involved in the budget, and I would like to explain quickly to you how the budget process works, when you should be looking for certain things, and how you can get more involved. So first of all, we publish all of our live documents, or the documents we're using to make budget decisions, on the town website. And I put it in one spot so that it's one set of documents that you can review and you can look for updates. If you go to the town website, on the town administrators page, which is under the departments tab, you'll see a item in the left navigation called budget information. If you click that, you're going to see a lot of the documents that I'm talking about now and documents that we're going to upload as the budget process moves forward. So I encourage you to visit that spot and check our social media and our podcast for information about when new things are released, so you're not just sitting there refreshing the page every day, which I know you wouldn't do, but it is funny to say in a podcast. All right, so the budget process starts for the next year in the current year, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So the fiscal year for any municipal budget, like Carlisle's, runs from July 1st to June 30th. So as of July 1st of this year, we entered fiscal year 26, so FY 26. We're closing out FY 25 at the same time, and now this podcast is about the coming year, which is FY 27. So we approve the FY 27 budget in FY 26. And if I haven't lost you there, great. If I have, just think of it this way. Town meeting is about approving the next fiscal year's budget. So all the prep work we do in the fall and the winter to lead up to the annual town meeting in April or May is about the year after July 1st. So this budget process we're talking about now will take effect July 1st of 2026, which seems like a ways away, but as you know, time flies. So we already started our budget process in the fall, and we do two major activities. One is we forecast revenue and expenses for 5 years, and that can be an art as much of a science, but we do our best to look at what happened in the past, what we expect to happen in the future, and we talk to all of our departments and all the people involved in spending money and bringing in revenue to better understand what we think is coming. And then we project that out. That allows their decision makers on the finance committee and the select board and all of our department heads and eventually town meeting to see the bigger context of all the budget decisions. It's an important part of financial best practices and something we take very seriously. Our financial forecast is currently on the website that I identified to you. Again, town administrator page on the carlislema.gov website under budget information. At the same time, we also discuss our capital planning. Capital planning has a major impact. We're talking about large building projects, building renovations, road maintenance, culvert maintenance, and of course, vehicles and other large pieces of equipment that police, fire, DPW, and town hall, library folks all need to accomplish their tasks and missions. That capital planning process tries to capture anticipated expenses for the next 5 to 10 years. There's more fidelity in the beginning of that process, because departments are looking 1 to 2 years out, but we try to get them to think beyond 1 to 2 years, 5 to 10 years for those big projects and those big things we need to plan for. You have to borrow for those things. You have to fit them into the budget puzzle. So understanding that these things are coming helps us plan the current day much better. Capital planning process is up on the website right now in a report, but it's also continuing with the finance committee currently. As I'm recording this tonight, the Finance Committee is going to be going over all of those capital requests for the coming year in anticipation of the budget process for FY 27. So then, what we do is we take all the information we gathered from our forecasting and our capital planning, and we ask departments to submit their budgets this week, actually, by the first week in December, in order for us to compile all the budget requests and see where we're at with the FY 27 budget. We call this the first draft, and I'm going to be presenting this to the select board on December 16th, which means by the time you hear this, it might already have happened. That first draft of the budget will be available on the website that we have discussed. It takes all the department requests and presents them to the select board and the finance committee so they can see that first draft of a very important document. Now, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. We send information to all department heads from our financial forecasting and capital planning saying, here is the guidance that you have for this year's budget. Because we have some concerns about the coming budget year, we told our departments for FY27 that things should remain relatively flat, and the only increases that should be authorized are those that are important to continue current service levels. That sounds pretty simple, but it's difficult in an inflationary environment for departments to provide the same level of services for the same cost. But we're asking them to do that anyways because we're sensitive to how our services impact town taxes and the way that residents have to fund these services. Specifically, we want to know the fixed costs and other expenses that departments have that are outside their control. And there's a few of them this year, like the health insurance and insurance increase, our retirement assessments for town employees, and mandatory and important costs in the schools are driving our budget beyond the ability to tax. So that means it is either going to be cuts in services, cuts in budgets, or we're going to find additional revenue. And that's true for anyone who runs any organization or business, but municipally, this is all very public, as it should be, and transparent to you. So these are important discussions, as everybody has opinions on what service levels should be provided in their community, especially when you're talking about town services and school services. So once that first budget is compiled and presented to the decision makers and the public, we then move into the analysis and debate part of the budget season. And this typically happens from January to March. So it starts with the Finance Committee meeting with every single department in something they call marathon sessions. And these truly are marathon sessions. Department after department comes in to explain their budget requests and any concerns they have, to present their case in terms of service delivery and what they think is important. The Finance Committee is able to see all of these right in a row, which allows them to assess them over the entirety of the spectrum of services and not just in a vacuum. And I think that's an important process. Those are public meetings if you want to attend them. The Finance Committee meets in person at Town Hall with each of these departments, and you really get to see the meat and potatoes of the budget when you attend those or read about them in the Mosquito. So once the analysis is done in January, February, and March, this includes meetings with the Select Board and the Finance Committee and asking departments to provide more information or come back in front of those important boards. There is a final result, which becomes the town meeting budget. Now, the town meeting budget is a compromise budget, one that's worked out between town, school, the departments, and all of the town officials that balances the proposed increase in the budget and taxes with the service levels that people desire. Hopefully, there's a consensus budget in April, and then the town holds a public budget hearing. This is also a document that will be available when it's ready and completed, and it's presented by the Finance Committee. And this is their recommendation to the town on not only the specifics of the coming year's budget, but how that budget fits into the larger picture. And that's really important. So this presentation is something that is available to the public. It is viewed and becomes the basis of the presentation the Finance Committee makes to annual town meeting when town meeting residents come in and approve this important document. So this year, town meeting will be in May, on Monday, May 18th, where residents will be asked in one of the first few articles to pass the town's operating budget. So that deliberation in January and March and that final consensus budget in April is presented to town meeting voters in May, and town meeting voters get the chance to approve, disapprove, or modify that budget on town meeting floor with questions and deliberation in front of their town officials. Once the budget is passed, then that is transmitted to the state as the final budget, and we work to start the new fiscal year, which is only about 6 weeks between town meeting and the new fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. Assuming all of that goes well and is complete, the town then enters the new year, fiscal 27, and immediately starts forecasting and planning for FY28. So there is an incredible amount of nuance and detail to each section of this budget process that I discussed, but the point of this podcast is to hone in on those key times in the budget for those who are interested in learning more, or if for those people who just want to see the budget process in its entirety as we start it here in December of 2025 to complete the FY27 budget. I'd like to thank you for your attention to this. Please contact my office or your select board or finance committee officials at any time with budget questions. We'd be happy to host you at meetings. Of course, they're all public, and send you any information or meet with you about any concerns you have regarding the actual budget or the service level deliveries that are involved. This has been the Carlisle Connection podcast, a Minuteman Media production. Thank you for your time and happy holidays.